LeadHERship Live, all about mastering the art of your ass- mastering the art of assertive leadership and the first secret. So I'm going to share with you one secret today on how you can master the art of assertive leadership. And I would like to invite you as well, because on Thursday, depending on what time zone you're in, it'll be at 8 p.m. Central European time or 2 p.m. Eastern. I am hosting a masterclass on the secret to commanding respect as a woman in leadership without compromising your authenticity. You're going to get 3 steps, 3 strategies for that. If you want to grab the link to that, just drop in masterclass, just drop that in either in the comments or in the DMs, and I will make sure you get a link to the masterclass on, again, the secret to commanding respect as a woman in leadership. Now, let's get into today's part, because really, I've had this conversation so many times also with different leaders about why some seem to effortlessly command respect and foster a high performing team environment, and others, it just doesn't seem to want to show up, right? You're struggling to get people to hear you. You're struggling to have people listen to your ideas. You find yourself interrupted a lot during a meeting, being talked over, or sometimes even your idea, you express an idea, and yet somebody else walks away with the credit for having come up with the idea themselves without having someone recognize that you were the one that had said it in the first place. So here's the thing: when you're wondering why some leaders can command the respect and it seems almost effortless and you don't, it's not magic. It's about assertiveness. So here today, what I wanted to talk about is, first, I'm going to share with you 3 mistakes. Okay. So if you are really tired of having your leadership efforts being taken for granted, you're not alone. Okay. I've had this a lot, especially with a lot of women leaders. So we're going to share today how to discover the first secret, which is aligning with your personal values. And this is all in an effort so that we, A, know the values, and B, so that it can also remain authentically you. Because we also know of lots of examples. I'm sure if you look around in your own network, but I know of a number of examples in my network, especially for women, that as they climb the ladder, they aren't able to necessarily stay more in their own sense of themselves. What you often see is they take on the characteristics of more the male oriented, autocratic type of leadership. So it feels very unnatural, especially as women looking up the ladder and thinking, well, do I really want to climb into the next executive position if it means that I have to start showing up in that way, that my leadership style has to change so drastically that it just doesn't fit right? It doesn't feel right to me, and I don't want to be that way. So let's get into that first step. Again, I'm going to share these 3 mistakes that happen. So what happens is that I see a lot of leaders, when they're wanting to be respected in their environment and yet is struggling to achieve that, is they're not assertively aligning their actions with their values. Okay, so they might, well, okay, I need to have this result, and what I see is that everybody else is doing it in this way, so that must be the way to success. So you're actually copying somebody else's management, communication, or leadership style, thinking that if I just copy and paste it onto my situation, that it'll work. Number 2, you're actually shying away from the moments that you have to step into your leadership role and either be more assertive in your communication or take assertive decisions. And finally, you're kind of hiding, right? So you're almost like, okay, here I am here. Hello. Could you please recognize me? You're waiting for somebody else to recognize you rather than stepping up and just saying, hey, this is me. I'm here. Now I have something to share. Okay. Now, what happens when you're making these mistakes is you're going to be triggering that feeling like, well, I'm getting taken for granted. No one's listening to me, even though I've got these fantastic ideas. I'm not being taken seriously. And that can be really frustrating and disheartening, not to mention the negative impact that it has on your team performance and morale. the other flip side of this, when you are not also a leader that is commanding respect, is being listened to, and you're being taken for granted, it also limits your career potential and that of your team. Here's why: because if you are not getting that recognition and that visibility and that respect that you desire, then it also says a lot about who are people going to look for, who are the other management and other teams going to look towards for finding the really key people to continue to grow. They're likely not going to be looking at you or your team. So let's dive into that first step today. So this is the first secret that I'm going to share with you today, which is all about aligning with your personal values assertively, which is one of the key components of the leadership compass within my Leadership Edge program. So I want you to think about your values as if they're a compass, and it's sort of like your true north. So remember that your values are part of your leadership identity. Being assertive about your values provides a clear path for your team to follow, and it also sets the tone for your team's culture and can promote a more harmonious work environment, at least if your values are more in the positive direction, right? If you really value competition and you really value aggressiveness, that may not create that harmonious work environment that you're looking for. If you are more about collaboration, if you're more about community building, if you're more about honesty and integrity, then it can also build a harmonious work environment. Again, I always caveat a lot of my statements, but in the sense that I want to really make this clear. This is not saying that you can't value ambition and drive. They can still contribute to a very harmonious working environment. Again, it's how you show up. It's the core values that are important for you. And this is why within my Leadership Edge program, we spend time to really understand what are your core values, because your core values are really what sets the stage for the actions that you're going to be taking. It's also that moment where you think like, oh, I'm having a conflict with a colleague and I can't pinpoint what's going on. And I think I've used the example before where I had a manager who was very much of like wanting to make sure that that her team member had the foundations clear, was taking action, was building relationships with the wider organization, and yet her team member was all about, well, I want to get to the next step. How do I get there? And it wasn't necessarily that either one of them were wrong, but there was a values conflict in terms of, for the manager, she valued relationship building getting a foundational knowledge of the business. And the team member, her value was about ambition, drive, and achievement. So sometimes they don't quite mix or combine together. So when you're being assertive about what your values are, it really provides a clear path for your team to follow. So think of this in a little bit of a different circumstance, right? Imagine you're a coach of a soccer/football team, and you tell them, "Hey, I think that winning could be a good idea." Well, it's kind of really like ambiguous, right? Like, are we really wanting to win, or is it okay if we don't win? Like, what's going on here, right? So that leaves up a lot of room for interpretation, but it also doesn't inspire any confidence or action from your team. So if you are finding yourself saying, well, it's a really tough market out there, and yeah, I know it's going to be a really bit of a struggle. So see what you can do. Let's do the best we can this quarter. Well, again, you're not really inspiring confidence or action. You're almost even opening the door for subpar performance because you're not communicating, especially in a way that it aligns with your values. Okay. So here's the difference. What if you were to start saying, in the example of the soccer, winning is non negotiable. Here is our strategy. Again, in the situation, if we're looking at quarterly targets, meeting the quarterly target is not negotiable. Here is the strategy that we are going to be taking. So, do you see that there's a difference when you align and express your values assertively and make it very clear? Now, it's a separate training. Drop me a question if you want to have a separate training. One of the things that we also talk about within the Leadership Edge program is that being clear and concise and direct is actually being really kind in terms of your communication. We often are tend to over explain in order to, maybe wanting to make the other person like you feel involved. However, there is times, especially as a leader, you need to be very direct, clear, and concise. That is the kindest thing that you can do for yourself as well as your team. Now, here's some examples. So let's talk about the former CEO of Uber, Travis Kalanick. Now, he often stated his dedication to ethical business practices, but his actions didn't actually align with those stated values. Right? There's a lot of controversies that came out of that. Now, we can talk about a number of businesses that do that, right? They state, well, we stand for either the environment or we stand for um, our employees first. And then what you see, there's a reorganization, and the first people that are cut are their employees, or they're found that they are using non-environmentally friendly tactics. Right? It happens. A better example here of what you could do, for example, is Mary Barra. She is the CEO of General Motors. She's constantly and continuously asserted the importance of safety and innovation. So now, under her leadership, GM has committed to producing only electric vehicles by 2035. So she's aligning the actions with the stated values of the company. All right. So again, remember, if you're not clearing your values and you're not communicating them clearly, then your team is left wondering, which direction do I need to take? Your values are going to set the stage for not only your actions, they're also going to set the stage for how your team sees you, how they will act, and what they can accomplish. So, when you're ready, make sure to register for the webinar, for the masterclass I'm hosting on Thursday, which is all about the secret to commanding respect as a woman in leadership without compromising your your authenticity. And I really want to remind you here is that decisions are going to define your leadership. So make clear decisions in this with this first secret in terms of what are your core values, what is important to you, and what values are you going to choose to live by, lead by, and act by. So when you're ready, you're going to have to make a choice, right? Another again, decisions define leadership. So now you choose your values, but you also want to think about, well, is it time to revamp your leadership style so that you can command the respect that you deserve and you elevate your team's performance to the next level? It is a decision that only you can make. And of course, you can do this on your own, or and then it takes a longer time, or you could decide to go quicker and we could work together. Now, if you're committed to mastering the art of assertive leadership, then I want you to DM me assertive and we can talk about how to do that working together. And as always, remember that there is a masterclass as well. Come to that. I'm going to share you three proven strategies in order to command more respect as a woman within leadership as well as within a male dominated environment, as most of the environments the women that I work with are. All right. Thank you so much. I would love to hear in the comments any questions that you have, or DM me and let me know if you've got questions or you want to know more. So DM me masterclass if you want the details, when you want the link for the masterclass that I'm hosting on Thursday, all about commanding respect as a woman in leadership, or DM me assertive if you're ready right now to up level your leadership style and become that decisive, assertive leader that you want to, commanding the respect that you desire. I wish you all the best, and we will talk to you again on Friday.